Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today's Tuesday, January 10th. I said it was the 9th in the video I just completed. And I have some afterthoughts about these protests. And I asked a question in one of my video titles, why would God want to save this system? And I got no replies. There's no real legitimate reply to that. And this is another, death blow to this idea of things getting better. If things are going to get better, where is the better going to come from? Like, where is the better? Tell me where the better is, right? Is the better our youth? Are our youth somehow better than the adults? Are they given better lives? Are they given more to work with? Are they more evolved in some way? Are they showing any signs of being like nearly a fraction of what we were because of them being addicted to the internet and all these things, growing up on video games and porn and being socialized by their peers and now by AI and the rest of it? Where's the better coming from? Certainly not our children. And I'll get into indigo children in a moment, but it's not our children, right? Like, we can see it's not coming from them. If they're the future, then our future's fucked. So it's not the children. That would be the biggest, and they might change, sure. And I'll get into that in a bit. But just from what we can see, right? I'm not talking about what we can't see. And I'm going to talk about where hope comes from for me. But what we can see right now, there's nothing indicating that we're going to go in a more positive direction. I mean, there's nothing out there other than technological advancement, which is hurting all of us. AI is going to start doing for people what people used to do for themselves. And AI is going to take away your work, right? Your work is everything. People complain about their work, but your work is what makes you into what you are, right? What's a beaver's work? Anybody know what a beaver does? It builds dams. It chews up trees. And there's some great videos out there I've seen. If I come across one, I'll share it. Probably not in this video, but you can find them of beavers walking on their hind legs, carrying mud and shit and sticks to build a dam, right? And they build these incredibly cool homes, waterfront homes that have a dry area where they can get out of the water and an area where they can dive into the water and be in the river or in the pond that they're creating. And so that's their work, right? What do bees do? They build hives and they make honey, right? I mean, their primary thing is to make honey, food for themselves and their babies. And then the other things that they make propolis. I mean, these wonderful things that are, various things that are healing. And, all the things, wax. I mean, all this stuff. And they pollinate flowers. That's another part of their job. You see bees saying, oh, I wish I didn't do my job. No, to be a bee, you have to do those things, right? And so when something takes away your work, in the Sajmark system, your work is everything. Like, what you get is, the reward for work is more work. You don't go to heaven. You go do more work on the etheric plane of existence. There's no pleasure. There's no endless vacation. That doesn't exist, right? Vacations are just respites between doing work. Like, you have to do work. And you watch people who retire. I saw this with my dad, and for my mom as well. So my mom had some jobs. She had a few jobs. She worked in schools as a paraprofessional, but she mostly was a housewife and a mom. And my dad worked as a guidance counselor, complained about his job forever, complained about the commute, didn't like his job, and couldn't wait to retire. And then he retired. I don't know what he thought, but I played golf with him. He sucked at golf. Like, I played golf probably 30 times in my life, if that, right? Maybe, certainly under 50. And I can hit a ball pretty well. I'm a pretty good athlete. I don't really like golf. I like the course. And I like whacking the ball. I just, getting it by the hole and into the hole is too much for me to really, I get tired of it. My friends, my buddies used to golf and they still do. But my dad sucked at golf and he wasn't good at it and he didn't enjoy it. He only had a couple of friends. He didn't make friends. He was just too much of an asshole. And all he liked to do was eat and watch TV. He went basically fucking blind and he got irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, So he couldn't eat food anymore. So he spent 20 years being scared shitless of dying and being mentally ill. He started talking to himself a lot. He started just like, he became like racist and anti-Semitic. His two friends were Jewish. Like he had two friends in college. He was an Italian guy, Sicilian, Albanian guy going to Rutgers University at a time where, Italians were prejudiced against and Jews were prejudiced against. So he made friends with two Jewish guys. He was like lifelong friends that tolerated him because he's kind of an asshole. But, he became anti-Semitic and racist. He used to work in the inner city with mostly people of color as a guidance counselor. And all of a sudden he became racist and saying, all these things, right? Like my mom and my grandmother became scared of him. He was ranting and raving. He was angry. And he was, scared shitless of dying. And he couldn't do anything. Like he had no life because he gave up his work, right? When I retire, I can always probably do this in some form or another. As long as I can talk and I can think, I can do this job. But I'll be farming for the rest of my life. Other than some FEMA camp situation that I'm not planning on. But as long as I'm living, I'll be doing outside work, farming, doing things on the outdoors. And I'll have goals and things to do. And, it's just there'll be something to do. There's always something to do. And then the spiritual work that I do, right? Whatever I do in terms of the gratefulness meditation. Because I know as soon as you stop working, you die. As soon as my wife was saying, once your body, you no longer can reproduce, you become obsolete. Like anything that's not reproducing is immediately starts to, become old and die off, right? And so that's like, that's a big part of that's part of your work or whatever. And so people think they're going to have these golden years. But, I've seen these places where people are retired and mostly what they do is get drunk. Sometimes they play golf. They hang out and complain about people, their kids and the world. And they watch TV and they maybe fish or whatever. But, when they don't have any work, they don't have anything they're doing, they end up, they're in these old people condominiums. I was there in Florida with my parents. I've seen this over and over again. And they're just waiting to die and they're unprepared for death, right? So when AI is stealing your work and you're thinking, oh my God, it'll free up all my free time. Well, when has people used free time to better themselves, right? When have people showed that they make wise choices with free time? Rich people, look at how they behave, right? They go insane. And so work is important. Like your job might suck. You might have a shitty slave job, so you think work is bad, just like you think education is bad because you went through a shitty school system. But learning and growing and getting educated and developing and evolving as a person is part of your job. And maybe that gets beat out of you by a shitty school system. And working is also essential. And so technology is making people weaker. We already know that. We've seen it with each generation. So where's the better coming from? How is the world going to get better if there's no evidence of anything getting better and people getting worse? Like, where's the hope? Like, the only hope is this, that, in nature, in the divine universe, when there is a problem, there's always a solution. And often the solution is in the problem, or the problem exists for the solution to come out, to be pulled out of you, right? So when you have a challenge, how many times have you had a challenge and after you got through it, you're more of a person? It's like you had things inside of you didn't know you had, and the challenge pulled them out of you. And so the problem exists for the solution and for the evolution to happen. And so in nature, you find like poison ivy growing next to jewelweed. Jewelweed is an herbal antidote for poison ivy. That the snake venom can be turned into anti-venom. They use the snake venom to create an anti-venom to help people when they get bit by a poisonous snake, right? The problem and the cure, the poison and the cure are often right next to each other. And so whenever there is a downward spiral like there is now, God has to give you a solution. There has to be a solution. And what's the solution? It's a spiritual one. We have a material problem, a consumer-based, economic-based, materialistic-based, ego-based problem. And the solution or antidote is your soul and connecting to the divinity within you, which exists in a form in the Sajmark system of meditation that I talk about. And I know it works because it's worked on me, because people have to change, right? The problem is people have to change for the better. We have to become better. The better has to come from us. And so, is there a way to make people better, or for people to make themselves better? Yes, there's a Sajmarg meditation. Connecting to the divinity within you, and the cleaning and transmission helps. I've seen it work for other people and certainly for myself. And I'm not even that, I'm a slacker. Like, I'm really into it, but I'm not. I could be a lot better, and it's helped me. Like, just with my minimalist effort, it's helped me tremendously. But the problem is nobody wants to do it. Like, I've seen it over and over again, and people who benefit from it quit, even though they know it works. And so, people reject change and don't want to change, and it's difficult to be a spiritual person, to be on a spiritual path. And so I know it works. I know that spirituality, I mean, it doesn't have to be the Sajmark meditation. It's the best, it's the best one for change. But anybody embracing the connection to the divinity within them is going to get better, except people don't want that. And so there is a possibility of better, right? There is this long-term idea of indigo children and crystal children, that there are going to be these special children that they were going to be more evolved, and they were going to be prepped for some evolutionary thing that's going to happen here. It came out of the New Age community, but I believe it to be a true thing. But where the fuck are they, right? I mean, they might be hidden right now, or they might not be ready, and they might be not conscious of it. But this generation of kids is pathetic. It's not that I'm making fun of them. It's what we've left them. We failed them. The world that we've left them behind, what we've created for their, upbringing. Our generations have failed the kids of today, right? And just as our parents failed us, like, it's been consistent failure of leading our children in the wrong direction, which is, why things, where's the better going to come from? Well, not from humans, because we're getting worse. We're de-evolving. We're giving up our work. Is it going to come from AI? Is AI going to cure things, right? No, because, people have to be getting better. The problem is we're getting worse. That's the whole problem. There's no other problem than that. People are going in the wrong direction. We have a higher element. We have a saint. Like I said, this thing, the Sajmark system, I've been around saints. I've been around higher developed souls. I've been around spiritual master. I've seen what people can become. I've seen it in my own spiritual journey. So I know it's possible. I know it's people that can get better. But the majority of Americans, the majority of people are getting worse, right? I mean, the more people are going in the wrong direction. And so the better can't be here if we're getting worse. And that's essentially, this is like a bumper sticker. I say these things and people quote me. You think it's going to get better, but where's the better going to come from, right? Like, that's quotable. And, I say these things all the time, unintentionally. But it's there for everyone to see, and we just won't see it. Or just won't embrace it. People are wanting to get worse. People are wanting to give up their work, right? People are wanting to go in the wrong direction. So, you have these souls, and hopefully it's true. It's part of the Sajmarg Whispers of Brighter World things. It mentions indigo children. We're called indigo. They're special kids that are supposed to revolutionize the planet, and they certainly haven't emerged yet. It might be hidden. Like, sometimes these things are hidden to hide it away from the demonic forces, and then the solution emerges, right? The divine solution emerges, and so the solution is there, but we can't see it, and all we can see is what's available. And for people who aren't connected to divinity, aren't evolving themselves, there's no hope at all, right? It's just bullshit hope in a Trump or something like that, in a Biden, or bullshit hope in all of these things. I'm talking about, there was this selfie boat, the selfie yacht with Greta Thunberg, who does these goofy protests, and then the martial law that Trump's bringing into these bullshit ICE protests in L.A. So those are things that are going on. This is going to be the beginning of the 199th edition of the Journey series as well, this voiceover. But you have these two things going on. And I've made fun of protests, and I'm like, where is it going to make it better? So you take an action. Your action is to protest. And what do you think the protest is going to do? Is it going to reach the ears of the powerful people? And they're going to say, oh my God, we're going to change, right? So the idea of protests that were done by Gandhi, whatever that thing was called that Gandhi did. Gandhi called it nonviolent resistance, and Martin Luther King called it civil disobedience. And what was the key element of that, right? What was the key element for to be successful? If you could say both of those people were successful, they were both not. They were both fakers. They were both posers, to some extent. Like Gandhi was a lawyer, and he said racist things. He came out of South Africa, and he was. I don't want to say he was a shill, but he was somewhat controlled. Although he did successfully get the British out of India, and the civil rights movement did move to some extent. Things got better with that. With Martin Luther King and those other people. Martin Luther King was cheating on his wife, and he was doing shit like this. Part of it was performance. But what was the key element of civil disobedience and nonviolence resistance? That the army would beat the shit out of you, or the police would beat the shit out of you. Like you were supposed to get your ass kicked. And then there was going to be public outrage. And that public outrage used to mean something to the powers that be. It doesn't mean shit to Trump. Trump does not give a shit about public outrage, and neither did Joe Biden. They're taking away freedom of speech. They don't give a shit that you're unhappy. They don't care that some people dislike them. Israel, the people from Israel don't like, the Zionists that are doing that shit to the Palestinian people. They don't give a shit that you protest and you saying they suck. And now there's video cameras and video evidence, and there's so much more there. It doesn't work. Look at the George Floyd thing. Now, George Floyd was on drugs, right? And so, it could have been called civil disobedience, but George Floyd was he had committed a crime. He didn't pay for something out of a convenience store, which is pretty fucked, right? Like though that happened. And he also, he was on drugs, and the cops came and got it, whatever. And that guy, Chauvin, the cop who put his knee on the guy's neck, George Floyd's neck, there's video cameras there. And if George Floyd doesn't die, nobody gives a shit. But now there's statues to the guy and all these things. But how did that work out? Is there defund the police movement? Did the BLM movement work? Did Antifa work? No. There's more police now. They're moving towards martial law. They're moving towards getting rid of posse comitatus. They talked about this with Trump. And so you getting the powers that be to beat the shit out of you, and then getting sympathy from the public and pressuring the powers that be to do the right thing, that's done. That doesn't work anymore. They don't react like that anymore, and when they do, they don't give a shit. They don't apologize. They don't do anything. And at this point, they can't, because things are going to start happening because of the economic collapse and all the rest of it, where they're going to start taking shit away from Americans and other people. They're going to sell you a new deal that you don't like. And they know you're not going to like it. They just have to keep it so that you don't go full mob. But even if you go full mob, they'll be hidden away enough to not have to deal with it, right? They have a plan for that, the people that make the decisions. And those are the worst people. You can't expect them to be the ones that change. You can't expect the better to come from them. They're not going to get things better. They don't make things better. They're selfish, gluttonous fucking hoarders that are, demonic in their spiritual approach. And so they're not getting better. They're getting worse. Why the fuck would they make the world better when they themselves are miserable, hateful pieces of shit, right? Better's not going to come from them. Better's not going to come from people. Like I say this to the truth community, the stupid Alex Jones thing of InfoWars. It's really stupid. It's ridiculous, because the people who care most about this are the ones posting shit on the internet. So if you think you're gonna rally people, then the people are going to cure a problem, or they're going to fix a problem that they don't care as much about as you. They're not even willing to make themselves public that they viewed your video. So why do you expect the sheeple to save you? Oh, if we wake up the sheeple, things are going to get better? They're fucking sheeple. They don't make things better. What the fuck are you talking about? So if you don't have a solution, do you expect the elites or the sheeple to come up with a solution and make things better? You out of your fucking mind? Why would that fucking work? Why would that fucking work, right? And so there's no better out there. The better is hidden. And the better is buried potential. The better is that there have been saints, and there are higher developed spiritual people, and there are people that went in the right direction, and there are people connected to divinity within them, and there are good people out there that are suffering under a negative system. But if they're freed from that, and they can let their goodness come out, and they can let their spiritual evolution, can be actualized. But it isn't going to happen now under current circumstances. So, stop fucking thinking that there's any better here. There's no better. There's no better. Why would God want to save this system? This system is demonic in every possible way. And where's the better? Where's the better that would, how could the system be made better when it's demonic in nature and when people are going in the wrong fucking direction? And so we can all see it. And so there are solutions, but people don't want them. And that's the other thing. I am well aware that people don't want to change. I'm in the change business. And, I'm changing myself for the better. I'm a better person now than I was before. And I'm getting better, through my, consistent practice and connection to the divinity within me. I'm okay. I think I give myself a C plus. But there are A people out there. There are people who have A potential, but they don't want to do it, right? They're not, like I said, I'll do it. I I check the boxes, but there's people who could excel, perfectionistic people who are, whatever. Everyone has their own way of going about it, but there's people that could, there are definitely people who did the Sizemore system better than I did, but then they ran into the problem of Dodgy, that piece of shit that, was, wrongly placed or whatever it was now the master of the system, and he's turned it into a fucking cult, right? And none of these people could, as far as I can tell, I don't know what they've done, but they're not able to handle this one obstacle. It's sad and pathetic, but I've seen it, and so there's no better, right? The better isn't there. The better exists, but people won't choose it. That's, there is a solution, but people won't choose it. And when they do, they do. And if until that moment, everything else is, just going to go in its current direction. And so, any of these people thinking that there's some Hail Mary or home run out there, they don't, this system isn't backed by God, right? It's clearly not backed by God, right? And so, there's Master Chargy, the third master of the Sizemore system. Some woman came up and was saying, why would God run the world like this? And he said, wait, you think God is running this world? Right? You think God's in charge of this world? Why would you think that? Where's the evidence to support that, right? So your question is, you're trying to blame God for a problem that people have created, that people's egos have created. And so until people are better, there's no solution. There's no savior coming. It's, it's either we rise up to a higher level, or this shit's going, it's going to go post-apocalyptic. It's going to go apocalyptic and then post-apocalyptic. Anyways, let's get into the other stuff here. Okay, so I just did a voiceover. That's going to be the beginning of this video, which you just heard. And then I got a dumb fuck comment. And, I get a lot of dumb fuck comments. This I would assume would be a truther. So let's go to the comment because it speaks for itself. Without further ado, Trump's dumb fuck say Trump right about everything, and the boys slam truthers. Okay, so this person is upset. I would assume that they're Trumper based on what they're saying here. Wow, this channel has really gone downhill. You have 196,000 subscribers. Don't you ever wonder why your videos have such limited engagement? No, I've never thought about that. It's never crossed my mind why my videos have less viewership and comments. I've never talked about it here. I've never explained it. I've never contemplated it. I don't even know about that, right? Why would I ever think such things, right? Don't you ever wonder why your videos have limited engagement? You should be pulling in tens of thousands of views per video. Perhaps it's time to take a good look, take a good long look in the mirror. So, this is a dumb fuck. There's two answers to this thing. One, I don't want dumb fuck views, right? And you're a dumb fuck, so I don't want your view. You're a dumb fuck Trumper because you are lying to yourself about what Trump is. Trump is a worthless, grifting, demonic piece of shit that's, he's doing God's work. So I shouldn't say demonic because I don't know. Like, he seems demonic, but he's also doing God's work by destroying a system that God, I want to say God wants, divinity needs to be destroyed. That we need, not divinity. We need, the divinity within us needs to be destroyed, right? For us to move forward, this system has to go. And so, if you're rooting for that, if you're saying Trump is some sort of a higher developed soul that's doing God's work, well, yeah, sure. Then you could say positive things about him. Like, he's a guy that's going to help bring about a spiritual evolution, possibly. Because a system that's preventing that from happening is going to be taken down by his fucking being a piece of shit, right? But as a human being, he sucks. And he's a liar. He's not going to deliver any of the things he said he was going to. And so, if I have to be a dumb fuck or if I have to pander to dumb fucks, then I'm not going to have a YouTube channel. Like, I'm not here to lie and pretend. Like, I could have more views. You think I couldn't get more views? You think I couldn't? I'm not smart enough to understand what people want to hear and give it to them, and become a flat earther or a, QB or any number of things where there's lots more views to be had, and I can't understand what dumb fucks want to hear and tell dumb fucks what they want to hear. I think I can. I think I'm pretty capable of doing that. So that's point one, right? That's number one. The second thing is, you think this is a fucking popularity contest, right? You think telling the truth is being a popularity contest? Okay, what about fucking Jesus, right? And I don't mean fucking Jesus I mean like, I mean what you think about Jesus, right? You're fucking Jesus, not the real Jesus. What about Jesus? He didn't win a popularity contest, right? Neither did his disciples. Okay, so Jesus had a number of followers. He had disciples, three of them turned on him. Judas betrayed him. Peter denied him. And Thomas doubted him. And they all probably had their own issues, right? And those were just 12 best guys. And all these other followers turned on him. It's in the Bible. Go read it. He didn't win a popularity contest. The more truth he told, the more threat he became. And so if I had more views and more popularity, that would be great, but it would have to be people who want to hear the truth and people who want to change. I could say I was a Christian. That would boost. I could, instead of saying what the truth is, which is I practice the Sajmarg meditation, also called Gratefullness meditation. And it's been very effective. It's changed my life. And I believe, it's my responsibility to tell people about it. What people do with it is their problem. What people do with that information is they're going to do whatever they do with it. But it's my responsibility to put it out there because I've benefited from something. And I want to share the thing that's made the most difference in my life, right? So if I lied to people and told I was a Christian and I celebrated Bible verses, I'd get a lot more views. If I became not even just a liberal or some mainstream person, talked about how great celebrities are, you just did a fan channel of some celebrity, I could get a bunch of their dopey fans to watch. There are a bunch of people that watch my videos over on some anti-Alec Baldwin's Hilaria Baldwin. Hilaria Baldwin has like a whole group of people that shit on her, and they're big fans of my channel, like things like that, right? But I could do that. I could find out what people want to hear about and deliver those types of videos. But I don't want to do that. Like, I want to talk about what I believe to be important and what I believe the truth is. And the things that I want to cover based in, all these things, right? And so if that means that there's less views, then there's going to be less views. That's the reality of our situation, right? But I don't want dumb fuck views. There's plenty of channels for dumb fucks. The internet has 99% catering to dumb fucks, right? It's 99% dumb fuck pandering. I'm not a dumb fuck panderer. I'm not pandering to dumb fucks like you who love Trump. And great, you love Trump. It's not my problem. I don't hate on you, but you're a dumb fuck. Like, it's just you don't know you're a dumb fuck, and that's part of being a dumb fuck. You know, there's a great comedy special by this guy Chris Porter. It's like 4 or 5 years old. You can get it on YouTube, I think. And he has this moment where he's talking about, I think, people who went to Iran for vacation and went hiking and caused a whole big problem, or they ended up in Iran, whatever it was. Americans, and so he was talking about fucktards, and he says every family's got one. If you don't know who it is, it's you, right? And so this is, the dumb fucks don't know they're dumb fucks. They get mad when people point out some of their beliefs are stupid. And in this case, anybody believing that Trump is going to save or do a good job, I mean, that ship has sailed. I didn't know what he was going to do at the beginning of his presidency, either one of them. No one knew, because he was all over the place and what he promised and what he did. Nobody really knows what Trump believes in or not, and it was unsure what he was going to do other than his handlers, and I don't think he even knows what he's going to do. And that big, beautiful bill, he hasn't read it. He doesn't know what's in it. If you ask him, they asked him about his favorite Bible verse, which he said was his favorite book, and he couldn't name one of them. He's a lying piece of shit. Like, he's not thoughtful. He's not curious. And so, he has some ideas, general ideas of what he wants to do on immigration, these other things. But the most he does, he goes to people and say, make it happen. I want to do this, make it happen. And then he gets blocked doing something. He finds a way to try to get around it being blocked. And so, it's obvious. It should be obvious to everyone. And so, I mean, Trumpers can watch these videos. They're not going to like them, because this is what's happening right now. Trump is bringing down the country, and like I said, it's for the overall good. I'll give him that, right, on a soul level, that he's doing God's work, but not consciously. Like, he's just, as a person, he's, somebody I used to like as a celebrity. I liked The Celebrity Apprentice. I liked him. He was my favorite president as a personality, as a character in the first term. He made me laugh. I enjoyed his victory night in 2016. And he wasn't doing much damage then. I mean, damage was being done based on his presence. The liberals were pushing their bullshit agenda. But, the system, I know for a long time, the system has to come down anyway. And so, none of these things are, it's not that I'm bummed he's taking the system down. It's just that he's just a bad example of a human being, and all the people that fall for him and follow him, it's pathetic. And so, yeah, okay, I don't get as many views as I should based on subscriber rate, and I'm losing subscribers. But that isn't because of the Trump criticism. I mean, that has much to do with YouTube. It isn't because my content's getting worse, it's getting better. You say my channel goes downhill. Why? Because I'm clearer on what the truth is, and I'm saying things that most people won't say and don't know. Well, then that's, what people do with it, how YouTube treats it and how people treat it, those things are out of my control. And, like I said, there's plenty of content for dumb fucks. And so, I have quality, not quantity. So see ya. When you realize Trump fucked you, you can come back here if you want. But other than that, until you undumb fuck yourself, there's plenty of other content based in your dumb fuckery. I walked away from this computer to make lunch, and I realized I forgot my joke. I had a couple jokes to do here. I did all of them but this one. So the person, let me just read this thing again. Let's reread the comment. Wow, this channel has really gone downhill. You have 196,000 subscribers. Don't ever wonder why your videos have such limited engagement. You should be pulling in tens of thousands of views per video. Perhaps it's time to take a good long look in the mirror. Why don't you take a good long look in the mirror? Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the biggest dumb fuck of them all, right? Say that when you look in the mirror. And I'm sure the mirror will reveal the truth. Aside from, Trumpers not watching my videos, there is a bigger issue here, which this has been for a number of years. The 196,000 subscribers don't get notified. I had over 200,000 subscribers at one time. But the real reason I don't get more views, aside from, whenever you evolve as a truther or anything, people, there's, like, let's say somebody's a pop musician. You see somebody like Bob Dylan, who became a folk singer and icon and a person that represented this whole hippie movement. And then he was like, he wanted to do rock music and he didn't want to do folks music anymore. And people booed him and they hated his new shit, right? People evolve and they change and they grow as an artist. They grow as a presenter, a creator. You should be growing. And the more you grow, the less popular you become. People who, you see this with actors and things, the movies they really want to do end up being things that aren't blockbusters and things that don't do very well. This idea you do one for you and one for them, right? This kind of thing. Them being the people in charge of Hollywood. So this is all these things. When you grow as a person, you're going to lose viewership. But that really isn't the problem. My 200,000 subscribers were from a much earlier era of this channel. It peaked in 2018, and then YouTube just stopped doing things that brought in new subscribers. I was getting 100 new subscribers a day. And YouTube, and my videos were different. They were more popular. They would be things that would reach a larger audience. And I would still do those videos, celebrity videos and other things, just because I had to keep this channel financially viable. But YouTube wasn't recommending those videos anyway. And so they weren't making any more money than the things that I like to talk about. And so, those videos the content that I made, the only reason I would cover that stuff was because I had to do some things to keep the channel, viable. Those of you who have been around for a while know what I'm talking about. But when they stopped promoting those videos, then it made no sense to make those videos because, those weren't people. I mean, people are going to watch my Britney videos and those things. We're going to miss the overall message here, which they would get anyway. So, I felt some responsibility to make some content for the dumb fucks, right? But now there's, with YouTube not recommending things to dumb fucks and me not really wanting them around because I'm just tired of them and the stuff with Trump, then it's just, it's run its course. And so I've accepted it. So there's very little here in this comment. And the person doesn't, I can gather by the title they're a Trumper, but they don't say anything about Trump, right? They don't say your channel's gone downhill because you're telling us the truth about Trump, or you got Trump derangement syndrome, because that's the way they would say it, and so it's a bad comment because you're saying it went downhill because you don't agree with my content. But if you liked my content, you'd be like, why are people not watching it, right? Why aren't there more people now? Why aren't more people watching this channel? This channel is great. There's people who say that all the time. And so, it's only a dumb fuck who likes Trump. And when somebody tells you the truth about Trump, which is I'm doing you a service, but you're too dumb and you're too much of a fuck to realize when somebody's doing you a solid. Anyways, let's go to the other stuff. Okay, so I went and ate lunch and I had more thoughts about this comment and the attitude that's here, that they think that somehow telling me I should go look in the mirror because my view count doesn't match my subscriber base. If I was going to look in the mirror, which I do every day when I meditate or do cleaning, when you meditate, you're facing yourself, right? And when you connect to God, and meditating, connecting to God is the key. It's not just everyone meditates, but meditation is a state of mind that your mind goes to. It's something your mind does. But when you use this natural state of meditation and you harness it and practice it and you connect it to divinity within you, then you're going to have thoughts and, things are going to be mirrored back to you. It's inevitable. And even before, I when I was at my worst as a person, when I was in my college years, when I was just a punk and a like horrible person. And like when I would play sports, I would often get mad at my teammates and say, if we lost and get frustrated, just handling losing poorly, like poor character stuff, right? And I would go home and at night I would think about the things I said and I was like ashamed, embarrassed, right? I felt like horrible, like just how I behaved, right? There was things that I, said over the years and, my behavior and my, my attitude. And, when I was in a calmer moment, when I wasn't angry or didn't have adrenaline going or, I used to say awful things to people. I mean, what I say now, I'm so much more, like calling people dumb fucks is obviously not nice, but it's, it's done in a humorous fashion. And it's coming in the, wake of comments like this, right? Where the dumb fucks are, telling me I'm wrong all the time, right? And so, I already have that in me, looking in the mirror. But looking in the mirror isn't about popularity or about how people receive things. And to use that as some leverage point that I have to self-examine and change what I'm doing. What you're saying is I have to, get a lobotomy and all of a sudden believe in Trump when I clearly know that Trump is lying to you and you guys are all bullshitting yourselves. And you guys know too, you just don't want to admit it. You guys all fucking know Trump is a piece of shit. You just don't want to admit it, right? But in general, the truth community was never about popularity. If you say mainstream things, there's a lot more sheeple out there and there's the YouTube itself. So when I first was making videos, one of my viewers wrote to me, it happened more than once, and said, you worried about them killing you? The powers that be. And I was like, well, they'd cancel my channel first, right? Like they're not going to kill you when they could just delete your channel. But even then I wasn't worried because I had a sense already that there wasn't going to be anything that our YouTube channels were going to do to change anything. I didn't know then yet, right? When I first started making videos that were truther in nature, there's some chance that we didn't know what would happen when the truth community sort of became more mainstream and the mainstream media and people started talking about it. But I knew that they had a way to deal with it. I knew that people weren't going to change, and I knew we weren't doing anything but talking about things that were, of a personal transformation. They were great, but in terms of changing the system, I knew it couldn't be done, right? So, but in that, let's say they were going to persecute people. Well, the first thing they would do is censor you. They could do it. I knew that was the first thing they did, right? And so when I started making truther videos, YouTube promoted truther videos. There was no distinction. Their algorithms worked correctly. Their search engines worked correctly. People love truther videos and truther content, and YouTube and every social media platform promoted the shit out of it, and there was lots of views to be had. And, the content was different and better because it could be more entertaining. I could make more celebrity-based videos, Illuminati-based videos, because it hadn't become so political yet. What we're seeing now with Trump and Biden and those things where, that's where the story's at. Like the Hollywood stuff is faded. Hollywood celebrities have very little influence. They're all running for their lives in terms of their jobs now that AI is involved. And the Hollywood celebrity culture is no longer like politically. I mean, the symbolism, Illuminati shit, the stuff that's in videos and all that stuff, it's interesting, but it's no longer really that interesting. And it doesn't have any real bearing now. Celebrity culture used to have such a hold on people. It used to direct people in a certain way, but you can see it's failed. They pushed for a liberal agenda, and now people have reacted to it and are much more engaged with social media. So all those things, right? But either way, they eventually censored us. In 2018 is when it hit my channel. They censored everybody, but particularly people in the truth community, and I got hit really hard by it. All of a sudden instead of gaining 100 subscribers a day, I was losing subscribers. Like I went from like 50,000, from 100,000 to 200,000 in like a year or 2 years. And that was without any, I used to have more viral videos. Of course, the content that I was making was worse. It was, it was more dumb fuck oriented because I was more of a dumb fuck back then. Like I didn't know a lot of things I know now. Like I wouldn't repost my content. I would have to redo the videos completely because they weren't as truthful as they should have been. They were truthful from what I knew, but what I knew was limited. And I've grown as a spiritual person. I've grown as a the content maker, all these things, right? And then YouTube just flat out started to suppress views, suppress viewer notifications, suppress subscriptions, and they just have consistently changed their algorithms to now where it's, you know, I mean, we all have just dying channels because we have our subscriber base and, you know, whatever it is. And those people, even if they want to watch the channel, they don't get notified. Lots of them just disappear. You know, I make about 2 hours of content a day. And there are people who listen to it for years, but they fade. You know, there's people that I'm like, they leave a comment. I'm like, oh my God, I haven't heard from that person. You know, and when I had less people, I had more of an understanding of regular viewers, right? But there are people who no longer watch my content that, you know, they don't dislike me, but they've just moved on. You know, it's lots of content. That's what people do. You know, they might come back occasionally. So the key is to bring in new viewers, and I don't have a way to do that. I've ran ads. I tried everything. But YouTube has pretty much sucked everything up so that you can't even do that. They fucked their algorithms up so much, and their ad buys, Google ads and YouTube ads both suck so bad. I had such a horrible experience. And I'm paying them for something they used to do for free. And we're supposed to be partners. So, you know, that's all done. Like, that was inevitable. And, you know, I just understand this is the case, right? But it isn't, you know, I'm not going to regret telling the truth about Trump. Why would I do that? Like, I would regret lying and prostituting myself to pandering to dumb fucks. That's what I would regret. You know, if you're going to get all sort of look in the mirror, well, you look in the mirror, you're asking me to go against what I believe and saying that I should do it because of view counts. It's the same thing as saying I'm unsubscribing. You're trying to censor me because you're a dumb fuck Trumper and you don't like what I have to say. And there's plenty of dumb fuck Trumper content. Like, I mean, so much of the truth community is dumb fuck Trumper. And there's the dumb fuck Trumpers, right? The dumb fuck Trumpers are, you know, it's probably, what do you guys think? 60%? You guys can give your percentage. Like, what do you think the percentage of dumb fuck Trumpers are? You know, I mean, people can leave a comment. You guys watch more truth content than I do. But all of the truther channels, don't you think it's like 60, 70% of the truthers are dumb fuck Trumpers, either panderers or they believe in dumb fuck Trump stuff. And then there's just the dumb fuck Trumpers that are just out there that aren't even truthers. And, you know, you guys have so much content. You can't have like one channel that acknowledges Trump's a fucking piece of shit and the people that are following him are dumb fucks because you're willfully ignoring what he's doing and who he is. And he's so obviously telling you and you just won't do it. It's like your husband comes in and he's got, you know, what do they call those things? The thing that a tourniquet. He's got a tourniquet on his arm because he's got these, you know, these shots of places where he's been injecting heroin. He's got coke on his mustache. He's wearing a fucking condom, a used condom, and he smells like a cheap whore. And he's got lipstick on his collar. And he comes home, and you're like, oh, what a wonderful husband he is. And you know, like every possible thing there, right? You know. He's wearing, you know, what, I mean, he's got nail polish on or what, you know, like any number of things, right? And you know the guy's a piece of shit, but you just won't acknowledge it. You know, there was a time in graduate school, I had one really good professor that, you know, it was a new age school, so it was pretty good. The new age stuff that's good is good, but you know, the professors, they were mostly kind of good and interesting. But there was one guy who was more mainstream, and he counseled addictions, and he said, you know, sometimes people are so fucked up that he didn't say that, you know, you're so screwed up, so crazy that you think you're crazy. So he was counseling this couple, and the husband was an alcoholic, and the wife comes in and she's just beaming, and she's like, he's doing so great, he's gone sober for 60 days, I'm so happy, our marriage is better. And she's just glowing and praising the husband, and he's shit-faced. Like the guy comes stumbling in, you could smell alcohol. And she's so convincing, the guy goes, gets a second opinion. He goes, excuse me for a second. He goes, gets one of his colleagues, and he comes in and goes, am I crazy or is this guy drunk? And the guy goes, oh, no, he's fucking drunk, right? But his wife was so like fucking delusional that she made this guy question his own reality. He's a professional, a good professional counselor who's been dealing with addictions forever. And that's what Trumpers are. Like, he's obviously what Trump is doing and who he is not what you believe. And everyone else can see it. And, you go to the dumb fuck channels that are going to tell you the stuff that's going to make you, stay in your deluded state. But you can allow these channels. You don't have to shit on this channel, right? Or me, because, I mean, you got plenty of content and Trump is fucking president and you guys got, a pathway to success. And when it all goes shits the bed, which inevitably will, and you guys realize Trump's a dumb fuck, you guys can come back here. And remember who told you the truth, right? Don't fucking, like when you guys realize Trump's a piece of shit, remember Pockets of the Future, right? Because I should have a windfall of views back there by then, right? When people realize, I should have listened to that guy, maybe he's fucking ahead, whatever. Anyways, let's get into the other stuff here. Okay, it's greetings. It's Wednesday, June 11th. So a lot of this stuff is interesting that's going down now. It's interesting I made the where's better going to come from, and I covered that one Trump comment. Because, martial law has happened. So I've had a folder entitled Martial Law. I used to do picture videos. There's a time when the thing that everyone would worry about was copyright. It's back when CNN would copyright you and the news would copyright you, and you get copyright strikes. Like the community guideline strikes was almost like never. I mean, you had to do something where you went after like other people in the community, like personal stuff, putting out their personal information or something, or things like that. Like community guidelines was not something that I ever worried about. Back when I first started making this, like doing this as a job, and other people before that, before I was, when I was just making videos once a month, and the truth community was quite prevalent here. When video, we're getting lots and lots of views and things, and so there was no video suppression, there was no tampering with the algorithms, and there was none of these things. And if you used copyright material, you lost your channel quite a bit. People did. And I had picture videos, so I went to a picture video type situation. And plus I didn't have the technology and the abilities, so I just had all these picture videos. So I have a folder called Martial Law. It's got all these pictures of martial law stuff, and I gave examples where there's martial law. There's martial law in Boston during the Boston bombing. And there's all those photos of the military going on the street searching for this alleged bomber. Remember that whole thing, that debacle, the Boston Marathon thing. And they were going into people's houses, and you could see all the. In fact, I'll put those whatever, some of those pictures here. Just some of the, I have lots of them. But either way, I always knew that martial law was inevitable because they were going to go, it was going to happen. And it's just a matter of who was going to invoke it, and now we know it's Trump. Now, Trump put Marines on the streets of L.A. to look at some fabricated, not realistic, whatever this thing was that they did, this riot, protests. They seem to be exacerbating the situation that even Katy Perry gets it, and he's going full what's the name of the thing? The Star Wars. He's going full Star Wars, and the episode where Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker becomes Darth Vader, and the Empire is formed. It's the 6th episode in the series. It's the 6th movie. It's it would be the 3rd chronologically, but it was the 6th that was released, and the one where Anakin Skywalker becomes Darth Vader in the second trilogy. It's interesting that it was this number 6 in it, and it's the Palpatine guy becomes the evil emperor. And so, like, the same kind of thing is happening with the Trump, bringing in the clone army or whatever it is. Trump is evoking the military, turning the military on American citizens, which, it goes against freedom of speech and all these things. And so if you're a true patriot, if you're, you think of yourself as a patriot, which I don't, but those of you who do and who are here to protect the Constitution, the Proud Boys or any of those other, the Oath Keepers, those groups, you should be 100% against Trump. This is a problem I have with cubies. This is why I've been calling them dumb fucks. Because, when cubies first emerged, I didn't know what their whole philosophy was. And they showed up on my channel and left stupid fucking comments. And they were moronic things. But as I looked into it, I could not believe that they were, a lot of these people were Republican constitutionalists who love the Constitution. And, they're all about all those things. And they were pushing this idea that they should do renditions, like grab Tom Hanks off the street and throw him in Guantanamo Bay and violate the rights of an American citizen. Doesn't matter how bad that citizen is, and give these secret military tribunals with these, all these sealed indictments that were supposed to be in there, like 1,000 sealed indictments that Trump had, and he was going to go after the deep state. And when they went after him, they were going to go, and these people weren't going to have their judicial rights. And they were okay with it. The so-called patriots were okay with it because they had been emotionally triggered so much, and in a way that they were willing to violate everything that makes America America. And so, they've bought into Trump. Now, if Biden was doing this, I mean, martial law was something that everybody was concerned about in the truth community. Like, martial law was a deal breaker. And so it's a behavior that shows you who the real enemy is, like who the real devil is. And it's Trump, right? And it's not even Trump because he doesn't even know what the fuck's going on, right? Like, he has no idea. And so, all of those things, right? So we know that there's a thing called posse comitatus, which I covered in my last video and many videos before, which doesn't allow, and it was put in there by the people who were like real motherfuckers, right? They were like not, they were slave owning politicians. They had their issues, but they were trying to prevent like the monarchical, the evil empire kingdom kind of things from happening here. And they said we should never have a standing military, which of course we have the biggest military in in recent history, right? And we have the best military that exists in our 5,000-year history. There's been other militaries that have been superior here, but the numbers of the people, and certainly. But we have a standing military that we're not supposed to have. We're supposed to have militia. We're supposed to have state rights, which are being violated. That's another thing. Just because it's California doesn't mean it isn't violating state rights. Just because you think you're dealing with a liberal governor and a liberal state doesn't mean that this is a good fucking thing. It's a bad thing. And it's, all of the stuff that, we know is bad, right? And so they have done all these things that are deal breaker. I mean, they're pushing things out to where it's going to be turned on you. Like, you think it's just about illegal immigrants and whatever bullshit and whatever fake crisis that Trump's created, and all these things. It's fucking bad. So I'm going to have some of the coverage. I'm going to have to look through videos on CNN because CNN was just covering this full time last night, and so let's get into it here.
In the meantime, I want to bring in NBC's David Noriega in Los Angeles. Melanie Zanona is covering Capitol Hill.
Zanona.
Retired Army 4-star General Barry
Look at that ghoul.
McCaffrey is an MSNBC military analyst. And with
the guy looks like a cartoon general.
us in the studio, former Pennsylvania Republican Congressman Charlie Dent. He's also the executive director of the congressional program at the Aspen Institute.
The Aspen Institute.
I want to start with you and whether you agree with the decision to send in the Marines or not. You know, the governor says most of them literally don't have anything to do, and he sent this message to the president last night.
Rescind this absurd, illegal, and immoral order. Let our military go home. The absurdity of threatening the people of the United States of America with their own military, our proud military. Mr. President, show some decency, show some humanity. More importantly, act like the commander-in-chief. Stand back and we'll clean up your mess.
So, General, I want to ask you.
Yeah, I saw him somewhere else. He's just so fake. It's hard for me to believe that anything that he's involved in is real because he's just like the fakest of all the people. He's just as fake as it comes, right? But either way, and I think they're underplaying this, Trump has put 700 Marines on the ground with no reason to do this. And, you know, this posse comitatus has been violated. Now, this is probably going to go to the courts. And if Trump gets away with it, then it's okay to put military on the streets. So I was talking to my brother about this, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. You know, my brother fought in Vietnam, and he came back and he was a drill sergeant somewhere. You know, I think he enlisted, but he was going to get drafted anyway. And so this is probably I think I was 2 years old. I was born 1966. He was probably I think he was in the Vietnam till almost, well, I think he went in when I was a baby. I don't know what it was, right? Either way, he was in the 60s. And he came back and was a drill sergeant. And I said to him, you know, what this is going to come down to at some point is American troops going to fire on American citizens. Like, you know, I was talking about, you know, whatever this thing is now, 5-6 years ago, right? Like whatever was going on. At some point it was going to be about, you know, they're going to have to go after people's guns, and they're going to have to turn the military on the people when everything breaks down. And whether American soldiers will do it, and he goes, well, I already know about it. My brother said, like, because he was stationed somewhere near Pennsylvania. And there was a university protest. You know, this is back when Kent State happened and they killed these 4 students. And he was sent there like he was leading. They were in a truck. And they were supposed to go down and, you know, he probably had like, you know, some military trucks, so about 15 soldiers with him. And, you know, they were armed and go and, you know, be a military presence at a university, at a college campus protest. And my brother knew that they were set up, like, you know, like it was going to be it couldn't go well for them. And, you know, the best thing to get out without doing something, because there's such anti-military sentiment in post-Vietnam, you know, with the liberals and all that, and the various ways that was playing out politically. And so he said they just pulled over the side of the road, and he sent some guy into like a liquor store to buy beers, and they just sat there and drank beers, and they didn't go to the protest. Like, he didn't obey the order to go there because he wanted no part of that shit, right? You know, which was, it wasn't like he was making a constitutional statement. He just was like, you know, self-preservation, because it was a setup to fail, right? Like, you got these young, you know, military guys. I mean, some of them were either coming back from Vietnam or they were, you know, going there, and they're maybe amped up, and then they have these volatile protests, and you just take one soldier to shoot somebody, and you're all fucked, right? And it's a whole, you know, they just were being put in harm's way. And so, you know, it's not something where, you know, this is like it's a violation of something. And Trump has done this violation, right? And the whole thing looks staged. These riots look like they're like fake or whatever. They're not even, you know, they're covering them, I'm sure, in Fox News like they're the worst thing ever. I got a thing with Fetterman, who, you know, was voting against the riot.
Ask you what you make of the decision to send in the Marines in general, but also, is that decision the president's to make?
Well, look, there's deadly serious political theater going on right now. Trump ran for office saying he was going to close the border, which he has, and he was going to deport 10 million illegal migrants in the United States, crashing the agricultural, construction, service industry, et cetera. It's not even remotely going to happen. It certainly won't happen with due process for millions of people. So what's going on right now is a standoff between a political standoff of tremendous hysteria on both sides on, are we going to support crashing the economy by deporting 10 million people or not? That's really what's at stake. Now, in the short run, 4,000 National Guard federalized is surprising. Bringing in the Marines is surprising. So far, they're not engaged with the demonstrators. They're guarding federal property, which he's fully within authority to do. So I think this is largely a fabricated crisis by both sides.
Okay, so it hasn't violated posse comitatus yet, but I think last night it did. This video was up yesterday because there was Marines there engaged. I'll probably find something on CNN to go with that. So, bringing the Marines in, you're just one step away from them engaging with American citizens, which is a whole posse comitatus thing. And they want that. Like, they totally want that, right? Now, remember how Trump went out and he got worked by he got worked by COVID, Operation Warp Speed, and all that bullshit. And then he closed the economy down. And then there was the bullshit BLM protests, which are totally fake. And all those protests, and, they were hiring protesters. Remember some guy filmed this area. It was like a park. It was like a park. My microphone seems to be having some issues. It's flashing, so there might be a little bit of interference. Just did it again. And so I might have to repeat some of these things. I'll keep an eye on it. The lights flash when it's like there's, whatever the Bluetooth thing is. It's acting up today, so it must be a lot of electromagnetic bullshit going on, which is, always bad. But anyways, they had this area in Portland where all these there's some famous star protesters that were showing up at all the protests. And these guys were like, they had slingshots and they're throwing rocks at the guy who's filming them. He was up on like a walkway above them, like a bridge. And they were all in there with tents and things. And some of these people were famous people in the protests in Portland. And they were obviously paid agents. They were like anarchists, kind of, false flag guys out there. But, this is them pushing for martial law. Like they're just ready to go here. And it seems like the protests are kind of bogus. And, then, they become real when people join in, right? People see them and they're like, are upset and whatever it is. But, Trump's going to do this with blue states, which is a whole other thing. Now, California is a huge economic asset for America. It's got like the world's fifth largest economy. It's just in LA. They're fucked now with AI. And the movie industry, the entertainment industry was already leaving. Like LA, Hollywood is a pit. And, people think there are all these celebrities in Hollywood, and it's a pit. It's not a nice place. I mean, I haven't been there, but I know of it. And California itself is just not nice. LA. I mean, it's a beautiful state. You go into the country. I mean, they have the redwood forest. I mean, just amazing stuff there. But the farmland. But these cities are brutal. And, LA, the celebrities are moving out of LA. Lots of them live in places like Montana and Texas and places, red states. And the industry's done now with AI. It's going to be so much less. And so film costs and California taxes and fuel costs and how expensive it is there. And so a lot of that shit's already gone. And, it's not going to be the same as it used to be as a place, the fires and all that shit. And now this, right?
And Melanie, I want to ask you, that hearing on the Hill with Secretary Hegseth today was supposed to be about the budget. But of course, given the politics the general just mentioned, it was mostly about this. What did we learn about the mobilization of these National Guard units? What authority is being used? Anything else that stood out to you? Yeah, the secretary was asked about this right out of the gate by Democrat Betty McCollum. She's a Democrat from Minnesota, and she asked the secretary, how much is it going to cost to deploy the troops and deploy these Marines into California? And she also asked whether any other training or critical duties were impacted as a result. But Hegseth did not provide a cost estimate. He did not directly answer the question, and instead he largely pivoted to attacking Minnesota.
Are they just like getting these girls like off the campus? Like, he's just like, hey, do you want to do a report for us?
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and how he handled the protests over George Floyd in 2020. Let's watch some of their exchange.
ICE ought to be able to do its job, whether it's Minneapolis or Los Angeles.
I have limited time. I asked a budget
And they are
question.
being-
Could the secretary please address the budget? Thank you.
You asked about the situation in Los Angeles, and we believe
Asked about
ICE
the budget.
agents should be
I
allowed to be
asked about
safe
the budget,
in doing
sir.
their operations, and we have deployed National Guard and the Marines to protect them in the execution of their duties.
And Hegseth was also
Okay,
asked.
so I have that. I have, I think, some more of that exchange. He's such a tool, Hegseth. So, but the big story here is Trump supporters backing martial law. You know, so-called patriots. You know, this is the same thing with Obama. When Obama was the worst president ever on whistleblowers, and he won 2 Nobel Peace Prize, and he exacerbated the wars. He continued the wars. You know, he created the ISIS thing, the whole ISIS debacle. Remember that bullshit? That whole fucking ISIS thing. He created that out of the leftover Iraq Republican Guard, Iraqi armies, the elite forces, the Republican Guard. He created the ISIS move thing, which was used again in Syria, and he was doing all this shit. Like, you know, he destroyed Libya and Gaddafi, and just bullshit wars. But the liberals thought he was great. They thought he was a pro-Muslim. You know, he'd speak with a Muslim accent. You know, he was his Indonesian. You know, his Muslim. You know, people thought he was a Muslim, but he was so anti-Muslim in his policies, and his, you know, he was so war. He was one of the worst war presidents ever. But he was, you know, the liberals like, oh, see, we trust this guy, and they just let him do all the shit he did. Droned people. He droned more people than anybody. He brought into drone warfare. And he was, you know, they were like, he wasn't, I don't think he did anything. He's just a puppet, right? But it's the idea that the liberals had that we got a guy in there that's not going to do bad shit, so they weren't paying attention to what he did. And the Republicans are just doing the same thing with Trump. Okay, so just a few short videos to get to, and I want to go to the Elon Musk thing and then get back to the martial law. Just a brief little Elon Musk update. But YouTube recommended this morning. Like, notice all the bicycles, right?
These protests are happening all over the country. Right here in New York, there's just a very big one downtown, rolling from the west side to the east.
Okay, so he's got a cameraman there. Don Lemons has a do-it-all guy. And, you know, he first tried to do stuff in a newsroom. And then he realized, oh, this sucks for people. They don't like it. When everyone's commenting, they liked what he did from his living room, like a podcast. Because, you know, he doesn't get that the news model of wearing a suit and tie and sitting behind a desk is done. And so he's got a camera guy who does everything. He fired all his other staff. And I wonder if his camera guy's got a bike or he's got to run alongside Don here.
Side in New York City. Check it out.
It's bicycles. There's bicycles everywhere.
You can expect more of these around the country.
Oh, you can? Oh, my God, so scary. All these guys stopping traffic and causing problems for other people, but not doing anything to get to Trump. You know, Trump wants protests, and he wants them to go nuclear. He wants the protests to be violent so he can impose martial law. And you're making it sound like this is a good thing. It's a stupid thing. I mean, hopefully Trump doesn't go in on it, right? Because he's looking to create martial law, you moron. You think these bike protests? There's more like there's going to be a bunch of these all over the country, you guys. Hey.
These protests are happening.
Just silly. Like Don Lemon's always so clueless. So a couple days ago, I watched some kind of video, the YouTube recommended video with Katie Couric. I can't remember what it's about. But now they're recommending her videos regularly. This one's about the LA protests.
let me go back to the question I sort of alluded to earlier, Hannah, and that is the goal here, the human component of this, to get peaceful protesters to be less than peaceful, to kind of the interaction sort of between these ICE agents and
Yeah, of course it is, right? It's the opposite of what I talked about with Gandhi and Martin Luther King, where Trump is looking to provoke the protesters so he can invoke martial law. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. I mean, how you can't get these people up to speed, right? Like, they want martial law. Martial law is in our future. Like, I thought it was going to come at various times. They've flirted with it. It might be this time. It's definitely getting closer. But Trump is all about martial law. He doesn't give a shit about what it looks like. He doesn't care about Constitution. The people who are supposed to defend the Constitution are, there's libertarians and there's some constitutional liberals. But the main people are the right-wing people who are, oath keepers who swore an oath to defend the Constitution. But they're letting Trump trample all the fuck over it, right? These dumb fuck Trumpers, who dumb fuck patriots, right? Who claim to be patriots, and are watching their rights fucking disappear right in front of their eyes, right?
some of these government officials making it so combustible, if you will, that it's going to create a problem. I feel like they have a vested interest in trying to make this seem out of control.
Like, she's like, this is so remedial, and she's leaps and bounds ahead of what Don Lemon was. Don Lemon's like, hey, you guys are going to get more of these protests with us business type people in suits wearing MNFers riding bikes on the streets of New York City in our protest. Like, what are you talking about, bro? There's no fucking, these aren't things that, it just inconveniences everybody else, and it's what Trump wants. Trump wants to invoke the whatever Securities Act that he's doing, his crisis security, whatever that thing is. I'll find this. I got it on a video here somewhere. They might have even said it in the last video. But that's what he wants to do. He wants to invoke the, that this is some kind of a national emergency crisis, and then he can have all these extra powers. He wants to do that for just immigration alone, never mind, the War Act and these other things, right? And so he wants martial law, and that's what he's tasked to do. Like, America is going to be a martial law state, and it's going to be always there, right? And so when people are starving and they have something to really protest against, they already have this in place. And we'll see it, and we'll get used to seeing military people, beating down citizens and shooting citizens and shit. And, checking your papers and all that kind of crap, right? Like, that's where this is going to go, especially for blue states, like blue cities. This is a blue city thing, like a New York City, Don Lemons. This is what's coming to you. And you can't wait to walk right into the fucking trap because you're such a fucking moron.
That certainly seems to be the impact. And I think, again, let's step back and talk about and I know we're running out of time, so maybe I distill this a little bit, which is that when the president made these threats on the campaign trail and ever since, it's been against people who disagree with his policies. And the ability to voice your objection to the policies of the president, no matter who it is.
Oh my God, that's where you're going with this? This has nothing to do with Trump and these things. That's what invokes something, and then it becomes something that's okay. It's okay to have military on the streets. It's okay to have martial law. And then it'll be something that they'll always go to. And so this is, they rolled out this model. They did this actually in New Orleans when they had the Katrina, was it? The hurricane. They were going door to door and taking people's guns, like they were doing in Fallujah. They had military people go to people's houses and taking their guns, right? This is, they have to get the citizens' guns, otherwise it's going to be just like fucking, a civil war, right? All these, the whole thing. And then it comes down to American troops going to go up against their, many of their like relatives and people who are similar to them, And are they going to fire on them, right? So unless they bring in foreign troops, which is something they were working out. They were training foreign troops here, and they often do that. And so they bring in foreign troops. I mean, this is a global, problem. They have to, they have to get control of America. And America has lots of people who are armed and has lots of ex-military people that understand the training and understand the program. And so, like all these things, that this is they have to they have to account for all of that shit, right? Okay, so let me switch gears here because I woke up and Elon Musk, denutted himself. The first thing I saw, I looked at my phone and there was an alert, an alert or a recommendation or whatever they call those things. You get of Twitter stuff, a notification of Twitter, and Elon Musk said this in a tweet. We're going to get back to the martial law because that's the main thing here.
And we have some breaking news at this hour. Tesla CEO Elon Musk posting on X with a pretty significant reversal. He posted, quote, "I regret some of my posts about President Donald Trump last week. They went too far."
So it's 3 a.m., right? And this is very, so what does this mean? Does this mean that he isn't in the Epstein files because he deleted those posts? Or do you regret posting that? That he is in the Epstein files because he totally would be because he is. Jeffrey Epstein had him as his phone number. They did things together. They socialized. Trump said very complimentary things about Jeffrey Epstein and his liking to party with young girls. Notice, the 3 a.m. thing is this, what time was it? Where's Elon Musk based in? Is it Texas? What are they on? Mountain time in Texas? So that would be 1 a.m., but late night tweet. But what do you mean they went too far? The dude went too far in telling the truth, especially now. Elon Musk has to regain his lost liberal customers, his liberal customers. So going up against Trump would be a way to do that. Did Trump threaten your contracts? Is this a business decision? Are you caving because of that? Trump is highly unpopular right now, and maybe some right-wing people are ready to, they're freaked out over the martial law thing, all the stuff that he's doing, invoking stuff that is bad for him and everybody else. This is a good time to stand up to this bullshit with the martial law. Of course, Elon Musk is not a truth person. He wants to chip everybody. But what happened here behind the scenes? Because this was an opportunity for him to, distance himself from Trump and regain his business. But if those contracts are under threat, or whatever it is, right? So, it's, let's see if they say anything here. Probably not.
Writes the Tesla CEO. Now, this coming after Musk deleted some controversial posts about the president over the weekend, including a call for his impeachment and also alleging President Trump's name appears in unreleased files related to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Now, he never provided evidence supporting that claim. Joining me now, Natasha Lindstedt, professor of government at the University of Essex. Professor, it's great to have you.
This guy's a 3 a.m. guy. This is what it sounds like at 4 a.m. If she's in England, he's got to go
On with us again this morning. Can we just go straight to your reaction?
It's amazing the amount of people that they bring in from England to comment. I saw someone from Australia that they comment about Trump and the American Constitution. Like they're not even citizens here, right there.
How surprised are you? Is this a groveling apology, clearly?
I was really surprised. I was surprised at the speed with which Elon Musk folded. Because, he has a lot of power. He's the richest man in the world. And I thought that he was going to be more of a risk taker and he was going to be a disruptor and a chaos agent.
Okay, so they went with the groveling thing, which he did. Elon grovels. Elon grovels to Trump as Trump imposes martial law. Getting back into the martial law thing, I want to get to the Pete Hegseth thing and a bunch of things from CNN because they went they leaned totally into the whole thing in California. But I was watching the show The Boys, which I've talked about. And this is on the final episode, I believe. Viewer discretion advised. This episode contains scenes of fictional political violence, and similarities to recent events are completely coincidental and unintentional. Prime Video, Amazon, MGA Studios, Sony Television, and the producers of The Boys oppose, in the strongest terms, real-world violence of any kind. So this show is one of the grossest shows. Like, they try to do shock value stuff. And the previous episode, there's a virus that these superheroes are created by this company, this fictional vaccine company or pharmaceutical company called Vought, that's made this serum that turns some people into superheroes and kills other people. And the people with this serum, they've created a virus to kill them. And one of the sort of good superheroes is a girl from Asian descent who is mute, and she has healing powers. Like her body regenerates, like Wolverine in the Marvel comics. And she gets injected with the serum, and she has a kind of boyfriend who ended up taking on a gay lover. This is like this whole fucking twisted shit that they have. But she gets injected with the serum, and he cuts off her leg with a hacksaw to prevent her from the virus spreading up to her rest of her body, thus saving her life. But it's very graphically done. That's just one of many other. There's a character who is vice president, and they're conducting a coup to assassinate the president. She's a superhero that people don't know about, and she can make people's heads explode, which it does in a very graphic way. And so there's graphic fucking over-the-top violence. So I don't even know what's coming in the 4th episode. And when this show originally aired was, I think, 3-4 months ago. I mean, it's been up there for a while. I just haven't got to it. Now, the show is loaded with anti-truther stuff, but also, like, the way the truthers are portrayed. This character called Firecracker, which I showed you, she does these truth bombs. And she she said in this episode that she's been placed on what's the equivalent to Fox News, and she said before she got this this gig, she was only had a couple hundred followers, which makes it sound like the truth community is a fringe community. When there's many more people who watch truther videos, even with the suppression, than watch mainstream media. But all that, right? It's got all these truther narratives that are part of the script, including martial law, including this right here. So let me go to this scene here.
Truth is, America's not a democracy. The word democracy makes people feel safe. But the founders never trusted the masses because the truth is the masses are fucking stupid.
So they're invoking dumb fucks, right? So this character is the one that makes people's heads explode, but she's a politician that seems to be against superheroes. That's her, that's her fucking, whatever, her political theater stuff. But she's going to be president. Like, she's now vice president. And people don't know she's a superhero, that, but whatever, she's a soup. Certainly not a hero. And that she's, they're about to assassinate the president and give her, make her the president, right? And this is what she's saying about the dumb fucks.
Anyone who owns a live, laugh, love mug shouldn't have a say in how a country is run. People are a labor force that need a kind but firm hand. There are no nations. There's Apple, Exxon, and Berkshire Hathaway. Corporations are the real superpowers here.
That's a bug that the good guys are, recording all this. But this is, Truther Stuff 101, and it's interesting. It's, I'm watching this whilst the martial law thing's going on.
You should be able to operate without any regulation or restriction whatsoever. After all, you're billionaires. You are smart enough to know what's best. Bottom line, you support me, and that is what you'll fucking get.
Hear, hear.
Okay, so I got a bunch of random videos. They're not in chronological order. Not random, but I all the things that CNN was covering, they cover this much more intensely than MSNBC. But let's start here with Gavin Newsom, as Trump calls him.
This morning, President Trump is waking up and going after the California Governor Gavin Newsom once again, posting on social media about the ongoing protests against his ramped-up immigration raids and the unrest that followed. Newsom is now taking the president to court.
Okay, he's got a bunch of things to say. The incompetent governor of California was unable to provide protection in a timely manner when our ICE officers, great patriots they are, were attacked by out-of-control mob of agitators, troublemakers, and/or insurrectionists. Make America great again. He is hijacking the word patriots. Trump has never been a patriot. Trump is the opposite of a patriot, right? Because he is a self-interested person. Then all the patriots think he's talking about them, and all these people that call themselves patriot. I'm not a patriot. I am I work for God. You can't work for God in your country. You can only serve one master. And so there's a time where what your country needs to keep on going, and we've long been past that time. There's true patriots that keep this country going, that do ungodly things. Politicians and whatever it is, right? That they're doing things to keep the country going. And we could say maybe Trump is a patriot in that definition, but not the way the patriots think. Because to keep this country going, they have to start violating your rights. They have to start taking shit away from you. And, there's no choice. The one thing I could say in their favor, all these people that are part of this, there's no choice in terms of keeping the country going. If you're hell-bent on keeping the country going, and I mean hell-bent, because you have to make a deal with the devil, because the thing should have died long ago, right? You're propping something up that if it ran its natural course, there'd be no such thing as the America right now. So they've been doing evil shit to keep it going. So then
Followed. Newsom is now taking the president to court over Trump going around him and sending in thousands of National Guard and hundreds of Marines, a move that the governor of California calls a direct assault on democracy and an abuse of power. At the center of this is this back and forth fight and escalating tension between these two leaders. Harry Anderson.
Okay, so what this is really about, for I'm covering this, is that Newsom is going up in the polls. So he's now going to be a front runner. He's getting his name out there. Again, there's national protests.
Taking a look at this back and forth. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, let's just start off. If Gavin Newsom wants...
My dogs are protesting something. I have to put my dogs in quarantine because of ticks. And my son is actually working on something outside, so he's probably coming in.
Wanted to take on Donald Trump and loves the attention. He has 100% gotten it. Take a look here. Google searches of Gavin Newsom with Donald Trump. Get this up. 9,700% versus a week ago. More folks are Googling Gavin Newsom's name with Donald Trump than ever before in Google searches dating all the way back since 2004. Donald Trump was able to make a name for himself through The Apprentice, through all of his business ventures. He is now making a name for Gavin Newsom, who seems more than willing to relish in this fight.
What are the numbers?
So this is where, they're picking their next president. Like, Gavin Newsom has been the front runner for a while. And he's so greasy. Newsom is an actual good nickname. Because he's so greasy. And he's just he's just icky. And so, for all you patriots who, they don't watch my channel anymore, but all the Trumpers, the patriot Trumpers, everything that Trump's doing, he's handing it over to Newsom, a guy who ran California into the ground. And so, whatever Trump's beginning here, Newsom's going to complete. And so, he's like, I would say, high percentage that your next president is going to be Newsom. And I think when Trump has been such a dominating force, it'll be interesting to see life without Trump. Certainly Trump made things worse, and he's handing it over to some scumbag. Whoever the Democrats put there is going to be a nightmare with an eroded checks and balances system.
numbers, or how can you kind of gauge why Newsom would see, if we're taking this purely political, why Newsom would see benefit in taking on Trump?
Yeah, why is it that Gavin Newsom is more than willing to take on Donald Trump? And, you know, it's all about 2028, and it's all about where Democrats want their candidates to be. Should Democrats oppose Donald Trump more? Among Democrats, look at this, 84% of Democrats nationwide say they...
Okay, so let's move forward. This guy's fucking... Here's the big number here.
This is so important to point out. Where is this race right now? The top chances to be the 2028 nominee. Look, it's a clown car at this particular point. All these candidates squished together, but you'll notice that one...
Okay, so AOC, she's hard capped here. AOC is a fucking dope, and she has her, like, very basic following. Pete Buttigieg is also hard capped. He's not going to get money and support. I mean, it could possibly be him, but probably not. And Shapiro is Genocide Josh. So these are the four big candidates, right? They're not even including Kamala in here. And Newsom probably would have been the candidate had they run a primary. He probably would have, you know, I think he knew that Trump was going to win anyway, so he would have waited it out. But if they did have a legitimate primary, he probably already would have won. Like, he's the guy, and there's no reason for him to win because he's failed upwards. I mean, California has gone so downhill in every possible way under him. He's mishandled pretty much everything. They've had wildfires. They've had massive amount of people leaving the state, businesses, corporations, people moving to red states. They have the highest prices, you know, overloaded government, highest gas prices, highest taxes, all the bad shit. They have all the bad stuff there. And money people are leaving just like they're leaving New York City. The movie industry, those things will be gone. I mean, California is going to be a shell of itself, and that failure is going to lead him to be, you know, the next president possibly, right?
One name is ahead of the rest, and that's Gavin Newsom at 12%. You see Ocasio-Cortez 10, Buttigieg 10, Shapiro 6%. But Gavin Newsom certainly is up there right now in terms of the candidates who are best in position to get that 2028 nomination, and he knows.
Okay, so, you know, there's that aspect of this, right? Like, you have to look at everything as being political theater.
An update to the breaking news we told you earlier about the federal judge denying California's request for an immediate restraining order from the Trump order to have National Guardsmen go to California. That was a rejection of the immediate request for action, but that same judge did set arguments for this Thursday. So a rejection of the immediate request, but not for the request in general.
Okay, so we're going to get into the request some here.
Convicted criminal illegal aliens. If we focus there, and we're not going after the milker of cows who's, you know, in 103-degree weather, going after that guy, and we're going after the convicted criminal, I think we're on the right path. I think you can get a lot of consensus there. If you're going down...
It's a Republican guy.
Trump from using the California National Guard to keep the peace and keep order during these protests.
Here.
Him use that nickname for his derogatory nickname for Gavin Newsom. He's could repeat.
Wait, what is that?
Well, these protests.
Let's see if he says it here.
Liberate Los Angeles, and really attacking Governor Gavin Newsom and Mayor Bass for the way that they've been responding to him calling in the National Guard and the Marines to go and try and quell these protests. We're obviously, I'm sure, if he's not alerted about it on stage, we'll soon after be hearing from him directly, I'm sure, lauding that decision from the court. But to go back to some of the criticism we heard, just now I'm hearing him use that nickname for his derogatory nickname for Gavin Newsom.
Newscomb. All right, so there's nothing going on here.
Not violate the law for whatever it's worth. But let's discuss what's going on in Los Angeles.
I mean, it's just a lot of police standing around. Like, it doesn't look like it's a fucking very, I mean, this could all be AI generated. So this is later at night, last night.
This decision to send thousands of National Guard troops and stage hundreds of Marines in LA in response to the protests over escalating immigration raids.
Donald Trump's government isn't protecting our communities. They're traumatizing our communities.
His hair is just a nightmare. He's like a J.C. Penney model.
Authoritarian regimes begin by targeting people who are least able to defend themselves, but they do not stop there. Trump and his loyalists, they thrive on division because it allows them to take more power and exert even more control. And by the way, Trump, he's not opposed to lawlessness and violence as long as it serves him. What more evidence do we need than January 6th? Trump,
Boom, exactly. January 6th. He's just such a slimy motherfucker. You know, I mean, he's not like even a real person.
is pulling a military dragnet all across Los Angeles, well beyond his stated intent to just go after violent and serious criminals.
Okay, that's enough of this fucking guy. Let's see what Trump says.
The courage and the strength of the incredible troops who are right now standing guard.
This guy yawning right here.
To protect federal property and personnel and uphold the supremacy of federal law. That's what they're doing. They're protecting our ICE agents. They're protecting the police in Los Angeles.
The state of California has sued the Trump administration over the troop deployment. On Tuesday, a judge denied the state's.
Okay, let's see what they have for. Let's
The detention center. It was peaceful. People singing songs until that one spark that kicked everything off.
Stephanie, what? In some of the farm communities there, we saw that they were arresting people, bringing them in and detaining them under these ICE actions outside of Los Angeles. To that,
have this area that is under curfew. You know, again, that's a
doesn't look like there's much
fucking
fucking bullshit going on here.
Noted, and
I mean, like, you know, it looks pretty peaceful. I mean, I don't know what kind of fucking shit they got in Fox News to make it look worse. But you know, again, the end goal here is always martial law. They have to have martial law. At some point, they're going to have martial law, and they're going to have to, you know, impose restrictions on people because people are going to be pissed, like legitimately pissed, not some bullshit fake protests. You know, they're setting the stage to put in, you know, mechanisms and reactions to when people really are fucking underwater with no food, no electricity, these things. You know, when their lifestyle goes down, when people are really freaked out, they need to have martial law in place. So she's in L.A.
regarding a curfew here in Los Angeles,
Chicago.
which would take effect tonight as darkness falls where we are.
I mean, there's like 300 people there.
So as we anticipate that decision coming any moment, clear that the mayor of Los Angeles supports it. We've got live pictures of protesters in New York and Chicago filling the streets. In fact, new video
Not filling the streets. Like there's like 500 people there, depending how many people are over here.
just into out front of a car in Chicago moving through a protest. It appeared to push a
Yeah, because people are fucking pissed by
few
the
sign
guys wearing backpacks and.
holders there in the protest in Chicago before then speeding away. So unclear exactly what we were seeing there. Also, large protests underway in New York City, protesting Trump's deportations and the use of ICE officers with those ICE raids. Shimon Prokupez is out front in New York City. Whitney Wild is out front in Chicago. I want to begin, though, with you, Shimon, in New York. And what are you seeing
Shimon, what do you got, Shimon?
there?
Aaron, one of the largest protests
Shimon.
this city has seen in quite some time. This protest has stretched for blocks from each side of the avenues, from 6th Avenue.
Just causing fucking people inconvenience. Already, shit sucks driving in New York. It sucks driving there. I'm talking about 20, 30 years ago. I don't know what it is now. But just the potholes and the traffic and it's just fucking massive and just whatever.
We're now on Hudson Street, and we've been going for about nearly 2 hours. And you can see people are holding signs saying ICE out of New York City. We've seen flags of Mexico. We've seen the Palestinian flag, and really just a convergence of different issues and different concerns that people here in New York City have. Also, they all first gathered at around 5 o'clock Eastern here at Foley Square, which is right outside the federal building and ICE offices. And they then marched for about several blocks, and then they veered off.
You know, protests are for dumb fucks. If you are starving and you have no other recourse and you want to threaten a revolution or riot, you know, that's one thing. But we now know that the people who would be most affected by this, who are making the decisions, are not anywhere near New York City around these protests, right? And these protests aren't violent anyway. And so just telling people that you're upset does nothing. I mean, does absolutely nothing, because they don't fucking care. I mean, America, the real wealth can pull out of America at any time or have interest in America. And so they do not care if you're upset. They don't give a shit about your feelings. And, I talk about protests all the time. And so we know they're not going to be happy with whatever the fuck Trump's doing. And these protests are feeding into martial law. And so, the people who organize these protests, if they're legal protests, they have to file some, paperwork or permits or whatever they need to do to get a protest going. They have to organize it. There has to be money behind it. And the money is usually not, it's not immigrant money. It's people who want to see martial law. It's controlled opposition stuff. Left, right, problem, reaction, solution. And so, they just don't work. They're for dumb fucks. And, you get baited into them. We talk about January 6th. You talk about all those other protests that happened. They were to bait people into what became January 6th, right?
Onto another street, Varick Street, where there are more ICE offices and the immigration courts, and they stood there for several minutes chanting and getting together, and all of the traffic in the area was completely shut down, and it was the first time...
Which pisses people off, right? Protests piss me off. I talked about my story, in UMass years ago. But, it sucks getting around cities already. And when you're having protests that are going to absolutely do nothing but piss off local people and, affect businesses, and sometimes if it goes south, business destruction and things, local business, you're just hurting ordinary fucking people. You're just inconveniencing ordinary people. The powerful people do not give a shit about your protest, right? So, just silly shit, right?
We had seen the NYPD start to mobilize.
And he's talking about this is fucking, there's anything there. So let's go to the other one here.
Most iconic location in Chicago, Magnificent Mile, right down Michigan Avenue. Location in Chicago.
Okay, so maybe a couple thousand people tops.
Magnificent Mile, right down Michigan Avenue. And Aaron, if you can see from those...
We saw, oh my God, what's happening?
Aerial video, that really gives you a sense of the scale here, because this protest was massive. It took up, the entire side of Michigan Avenue. It also...
Well, massive, maybe 1,000, 2,000 people.
Started to sort of edge into, was at Wabash and Monroe. So we're going to continue to try to figure out... Day of protests, various street intersections here throughout downtown LA, over the freeway. You're seeing groups of protesters and police. We've seen tactical units. We are awaiting news on...
She's got her tactical hat. If you want to sell something on Amazon, call it tactical. Men are more likely to buy something than some women if it has the word tactical in it. It doesn't even have to apply. It doesn't even mean anything. It's tactical. She's got her tactical hat.
On whether there's a curfew, but President Trump just moments ago making it clear how long that he intends to keep the military in Los Angeles.
If there's peace, we get out. If there's even a chance of no peace, we stay there until there's peace.
There's always going to be a chance of no peace, right?
This comes as Trump made it clear today his intention to use the military for political purposes. Tom Foreman is out front.
Boom, Tom Foreman.
Thousands of National Guard troops and hundreds of Marines have been called to Los Angeles by President Trump, who insists only military muscle can contain the trouble.
If we didn't send out the National Guard, and last time we gave them a little additional help, Los Angeles would be burning right now.
It'd be burning. Right now, it'd be fucking on fire.
But local officials say police were already dealing with sporadic violence around the largely peaceful protest, which they say were spurred by the White House's desperate and clumsy quest to increase deportations.
People have asked me, what are the Marines going to do when they get
this suit? He's working it.
Here. That's a good question. I have no idea.
It underscores Trump's long-standing interest in using the U.S. military even against Americans. For example, when Black Lives Matter protesters rose up in 2020, Trump reportedly considered deploying troops and asked his then defense secretary, can't you just shoot them? Just shoot them in the legs or something? Trump denies such tales, but
he didn't sue him.
Just last fall, when asked about potential election unrest.
To his credit, he was just brainstorming. He wasn't actually saying shoot him. He was just saying, can we? He's brainstorming. He's coming up with solutions.
He said,
we have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military.
He has
so he's going to be the guy, right? Like he doesn't give a shit about posse comitatus, and he's flirting with it. Like as far as I know, the Marines have not engaged with the citizens yet, but he's flirting with it, right? He's deploying these military people. Okay, so I have two things on Pete Hegseth. Remember, he went at it with this lady in yellow who pops. Look, she's just popping with the yellow.
Thank you, Chairman General Calvert.
That's right.
Thanks to the witnesses for being here.
That's okay, Private. Go ahead.
The clock's still moving, Miss Secretary. I want to express my severe concern with the deployment of the National Guard in Los Angeles without consultation of the state of California. There have been photographs that have shown these troops sleeping on the floor and have not been provided fuel.
Wait a minute. Fucking they're having to sleep on the floor?
Food or water by DOD. How long will this deployment last, and why were we unprepared to provide them basic necessities such as food and water?
The commanders and troops on the field are very well prepared, sir. They responded incredibly rapidly to a deteriorating situation.
Boom, they were in there fucking getting it done. He's a National Guard guy.
Equipment and capabilities. We have made sure from the top down, as a Secretary of Defense who's been in a unit holding riot shields outside the White House.
Okay, dude, you're tapping your mic or some shit like this? You're so unprofessional.
During the chaos of the summer of 2020. I know what it's like to be immediately deployed into a situation like that. There are moments where you make do as best you can temporarily, but we are ensuring they're housed, fed, water capabilities in real time from my office, because I care that much about the California Guard and the Marine. I care
that much about them, because I'm not going to fucking make somebody else, like some underling do it, some peon. I'm going to take care of this thing myself, because it's, that's the kind of caring guy I am.
And the men and women who are supporting our ICE agents on the ground.
You should check
it's
with your
true
office.
Every day, and that's a disingenuous attack that misrepresents how much we care about our troops and what they're doing to defend ICE agents. I'm not going to take the fact that we don't care about the troops. Nobody cares more about the troops at the top than this secretary and the chairman and our department.
How long will the deployment last?
We stated very publicly that it's 60 days. Because we want to ensure that those rioters, looters, and thugs on the other side assaulting our police officers know that we're not going anywhere. We're here to maintain the peace on behalf of law enforcement officers in Los Angeles.
They're just fucking abhorrent. I'm all the Trumpers. Talking to a Trumper it's like talking to a flat earther or vegan. Extreme flat earther, extreme vegan, extreme, QB. And it's all wrapped in like all those people who are just they just know they're right and they know you're wrong and they are completely wrong. And it's not even being wrong, they're just delusional. And same thing with the fake Christian Barbie truther. The left does this as well when they get pressed. It's like the left when they're saying Joe Biden is really functional. Like Joe Biden is sharp. When everyone can see he's not, and they just lie. It's so fucking, disingenuous, and it's like it's impossible to watch, right? They come out aggressive when they're in the wrong. What they're going for here is martial law. The protests aren't that bad. Trump wants to do this anytime there's any kind of disturbance, and the protests are probably organized by Trump-friendly, or not even Trump-friendly. The people who are controlling Trump are organizing the protests so they can bring in this, martial law bullshit, right?
Which Gavin Newsom won't do.
What is the estimated cost of the deployment for the Guard and the Marines to LA, and where's this funding coming from? Will it be coming from quality of life programs that affect our service members or our families? If you want to wait till I finish.
Before I hand it to
such as updates, housing and barracks.
Before I hand it to Bryn, the insinuation that we're pulling money from housing and barracks in order to fund this is disingenuous and incorrect.
Disingenuous.
I can give you the numbers, absolutely.
So the current estimated cost is $134 million, which is largely just TDY costs, travel, housing, food, etc.
$134 million of your fucking money for this bullshit theater fucking thing. And then he's got his big military parade coming up too. It's going to cost fucking $60, $100 million. I mean,
where's it coming from? That's the cost, but where's it coming from?
Out of their O&M accounts.
With the most recent deployment of the Marines, Mr. Secretary, what's the justification for using the military for civilian law enforcement purposes in L.A.? Why are you sending war fighters to cities to interact with civilians?
Every American citizen deserves to live in a community that's safe.
There's nothing that says safe like fucking military on the streets, right? Military is not trained to be police. Military is trained for war. And they're not ever, when they ever have to act like a police force like they did in Iraq, there's epic failure. They're trained to kill, and they're trained to, advance, defend, and kill, and, advance and kill and defend and all these things, right? Like they're not trained to go door to door and do police level stuff. That's not their training. And you shouldn't train them to do that, because you don't have them, you don't put police in the military to go out and do war things, because they're trained to interact with the community. And so, there's military police, the MPs, but that's something completely different, right? And they deal with, military issues. And so this is, it's an unnecessary power. It's just another power grab by Trump. There's one other thing here for Pete Hegseth.
Breaking news happening right now. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on Capitol Hill, where he just faced some tough questions from California Congressman Pete Aguilar about the deployment of Marines and National Guard members to Los Angeles. Let's listen.
What's the justification for using the military?
I saw this guy here.
Let's talk about
federal agents.
Governor
of the California has failed to protect his people, along with the mayor of Los Angeles, and so President Trump has said he will protect our agents, and our Guard and Marines are proud to do it.
The law also says, Mr. Secretary, that the orders for these purposes shall be issued through governors of the states.
You and I both know that President Trump has all the authorities necessary, and thankfully he's willing to do it.
$134 million for the Marines as well as the National Guard troops for this deployment. All right, thanks so much, Wolf.
A major change for the military, and that could have...
All right, so this is just whatever. Here, let's listen to this guy here for a second.
Political movements, his political assertions, they have to be careful that they don't become policy, because that could be a major change for the military, and that could have an adverse impact on its ability to remain apolitical.
All right, I want to go to something.
Okay, so the thing about it is, the people who organize these protests know full well that Trump wants to go full martial law. Like, Trump feels like there are certain things in his first term that Trump got punked. He got punked on COVID. We don't know how he's going to react to a COVID-like thing the second time around. He got punked on the economy. He got punked on, all the things to do with that, the post-COVID election stuff. He got punked on all those things. And then he got punked on the riots and the protests. And he wanted to bring in troops then. And he thinks he was right about bringing troops in. So, he's been waiting for protests because he wants to do-over. He wants the mulligan for his first term, what he considers a first term, I don't want to say mistake, because the guy never would admit to a mistake, but where he got worked over. And, these people who are in charge of any sort of protest know that that's the case. Gavin Newsom is loving this thing. It's benefiting him. I don't know how this is benefiting Trump in terms of his people, because he's already at the Elon Musk thing. I don't know what Trumpers are so oblivious. I mean, there's nothing you can say to a Trump. They're the ultimate sheeple now. They're the ultimate dumb fucks. But, these people are all benefiting from this, whatever's going on here. So none of them are suffering. And I don't know about the people on the streets. People are being inconvenienced. But they know that Trump is wanting to go martial law, and they know that's the outcome. Like, Trump isn't going to back down. Trump isn't going to give in to political pressure. the National Guard could open fucking fire on hundreds of people, and Trump will still not take responsibility for it, right? He doesn't give a shit what the media says. The media has no leverage and power over him. He'll just, say that they're patriots killing fucking, illegal criminals that are gang members and rapists and criminals, like whatever, the way that they'll frame this thing. And so, this is already kind of a done deal, what he's going to do, and they're walking right into it. So they know what he's going to do, and they're participating in this, right? Like all the people in powerful, on both sides of the aisle, the people who control them, the controllers, and all these other cronies of theirs, they're all well aware that shit's going to go south. They know that bankruptcy is fucking a big deal. Like I'm going to cover that in my next video. They're now talking about the debt and bankruptcy, quite openly. And like on just CNN, these things, and they were never talked about before. And so that's the outcome of Doge and all these things. Everybody realized the debt's too much and Social Security's fucked, Medicaid's fucked. And then Trump's big, beautiful bill, which is going to be whatever post-apocalyptic kind of, scenarios that could come out of that thing. And so they're all aware that martial law is like a component of any sort of plan to control what's about to happen. If they don't have martial law, then there'll be chaos, and they have to, put down the angry people when, they say, hey, your lifestyle is over. Like, just think how people are going to react when they're told their lifestyle is over. I mean, it's pretty much set in stone. These things are already, they're known, there's knowledge about what happens when there's hyperinflation and a cutback in lifestyle and, what governments do, what people do, how everyone reacts to it. And so this is not some uncharted territory. So here's this guy.
You put on your post on X last night about the Democratic response here. What is it about the Democratic response to these protests that's concerning you?
What I'm saying, it's like you can't defend when people start setting things on fire or they start damaging buildings or going after members of law enforcement. That's not free speech. That is not peaceful protests. And I'm very supportive of immigration as well, too. We have to find a way forward that two must be true at the same time. And that's what it's about.
Are Democrats not reacting appropriately, in your view?
No, I'm not judging any of my colleagues in my party. I'm just saying, two things have to be true. Like you can't be quiet on those things. You have to just call it really what it is.
So he had a stroke and he's got like brain damage, and now he's a Republican. Now he's a Trumper.
And it's like, look at the people that see these images and doing those things. Stop shitting shit. Stop setting it on fire. Stop setting.
Who's shitting there?
See these images and doing those things. Stop shitting shit. Stop setting it on fire. Stop setting it on fire. Like that's not protesting.
Wait, what was the shitting in reference to?
Destructive. That's just unacceptable.
But basically, you want more people in your party to be calling that out.
No, what I'm saying, it's like we really should learn. We should have learned the lesson back in 2020. Absolutely, there was righteous outrage over what happened to George Floyd, but that never means that you can support or be quiet if there's destruction or rioting and destroying and looting and those kinds of things. It's like that's the thing. So that's
what is the thing? You babbling fucking ape.
I don't ever support attacking immigrant communities. So that's the point.
Do you think it was appropriate for the president to throw in to send the National Guard? Are you supportive of him sending in the National Guard and the Marines into LA?
Well, I remember in 2020 when I was lieutenant governor, they sent the National Guard to Philadelphia in the middle of the unrest. So for me, it's like I don't agree with those in every situation. But what I'm trying to say is that
what are you trying to say? Because you're not saying it.
As long as people aren't setting stuff on fire
and shitting fire out of their ass
or destruction, I don't think you're going to have those situations if it's going to happen.
But in this situation, should the president have sent in the National Guard and the Marines?
What I'm saying right now is that as long as everything is, is quiet and legal and you're not setting things on fire, it's unlikely that that's going to turn into anything. And now
It's unlikely. Well, who's to say that isn't like Trumpers out there setting fires, or whatever? Provocateurs. I mean, it's silly. Like saying like anytime there's a fucking dumpster fire, that you go and bring in the National Guard.
now this is not part of a dictatorship, or that's not talking about all these. I mean, like, there's a lot of hyperbole coming on our side on this as well too. I think both sides are
This was his favorite thing.
playing it into a lot of professional wrestling part of it as well too.
Professional wrestling part of it. Are you calling his assassination attempt fake?
Last question, I'll let you go. There's a report that you had dinner with Steve Bannon last night. What is that right? And what happened there?
Well, was there proof?
I just saw that.
No,
Right? Did that happen?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, well, I'm not really sure why that's news who I'm having dinner with.
What was that like?
Well, I'd love to have a beer with you.
Sure.
You never invited me.
Sure.
Can we do that?
Sure.
All right.
Steve, anything you want to tell us about?
Yeah, well,
meeting with Steve
so it's
Bannon?
like I'd love to have a beer with you. You're a fun guy. So like I got to get here. So.
Okay.
You're a fun guy. There's a number of times he seems to like to talk to this guy. This guy's a kind of a bad reporter, but like Jesus Christ, Fetterman, that guy they can't get rid of him. That guy, what job can that fucking guy do, right? Like he couldn't articulate anything. His job is talking and making sense of things. I mean, that was a fucking mess, right? He started saying shitting when he meant setting. He used the word shitting for setting. And he looked at his phone for help because he can't process shit. And then he goes, wants to have a beer. You think he should be drinking? You're depressed and you're drinking a depressant and you're brain dead and you're fucking, you're consuming alcohol. Like, I mean, how many beers do you have today? Because that's not helping you. You have audio processing issues, which everybody who's drunk has audio processing issues. And so, adding alcohol into this equation of his fucking brain malfunction is not a good thing. Anyway, okay. So just to wrap this one up, I wrote this right here to Gemini, Google Gemini AI. What would be the most likely outcome of the American people having to deal with austerity, such as less food, electricity, with massive increase in inflation? How would people most likely react? If the American people were suddenly faced severe austerity, characterized by less food, electricity, and internet, coupled with massive inflation, it most likely would become widespread social upheaval and significant breakdown of societal norms. History provides many examples of how populations react to such extreme economic distress and resource scarcity. Here's a breakdown of the likely reactions and outcomes. Immediate reactions: panic, hoarding, and distrust. Panic buying and hoarding as essential goods become scarce and prices skyrocket. Initial reactions would include panic buying and hoarding, further depleting shelves. Loss of trust of the government, financial institutions, and even community leaders would erode rapidly. People lose faith in the currency, seeing it devalue by the hour. Anger and frustration. Widespread anger and frustration would target perceived culprits, government officials, corporations, financial institutions, and potentially even other groups of citizens. Widespread social unrest and civil disorder. Protests and riots, large-scale, often violent protests and riots would erupt across urban and rural areas. They would be driven by hunger, lack of basic necessities, and economic despair. Looting of stores and supply trucks would become common. Increased crime rates. Desperation leads to a surge of all forms of crime, from petty theft to organized gang activity, as people struggle to survive. Breakdown of law and order. Law enforcement and emergency service would likely be overwhelmed, underpaid due to inflation, potentially lose morale, leading to a significant decline in their ability to maintain order. Formation of localized survival groups. Communities might fracture, with people forming localized groups or militias for self-protection and add to secure resources. This could lead to inter-group conflicts. Severe decline in quality of life and public health. Malnutrition and famine. I'm just going to read the bold parts here. Increased diseases, mental health crisis. mass migration, economic and political transformation or collapse, point 4. Then I'm going to read the bullet points. I'm not going to read all the details. Shift to barter, alternative currencies, political instability, damage to long-term development, how people might most likely react. People's reaction would span a spectrum, but common themes could include desperation and resourcefulness, solidarity in small groups and self-preservation, anger and blame, loss of hope and apathy. In essence, such a scenario would push American society to a breaking point, fundamentally altering the way people live, interact, and perceive the world, resembling historical periods of severe societal collapse rather than just an economic downturn. And so, we all know that, right? It's there. There's all these apocalyptic movies, and they're going to have to tell you at some point you don't have any resources left. And when that happens, it's kind of game over. Like in terms of what we consider our lifestyle, I don't know what point is the breaking point for all that, but martial law plays a pivotal role in that, and it's, coming about. Anyways, let me wrap this thing up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing to the apocalypse. And the ascension, everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.